that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 323rd edition of Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the amazing Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
In the flesh. He always says that. Tom has certain things that he always says. I have certain things. I have certain things that I always say. Anyway, today is the 20th of June that we're doing this recording, and I'm going to start out with a sales pitch. As many people know, under the Trump administration, cable companies are allowed to reduce funding for public access television.
Bingo.
There you go. That means that Energy Week, BCTV, and all other activities of public access television have to find other means for support to keep local programs on the air. Energy Week has to come up with $480 to cover costs for the coming year, which, by the way, is a tiny fraction of what it costs to do the show. BCTV puts a lot of money into this show. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I'm asking our viewers for support for the show and for BCTV. You could make a donation online by going to brattleboro.tv.org. That is brattleboro.tv.org. Under the menu, find Support BCTV, where you can donate online using PayPal or a credit card. When you donate, just below the amount box, you will find a box where you can click on it labeled Add Special Instructions to BCTV. If you want to support Energy Week or any other particular show, you can say so there. I want to thank everyone who donates to Energy Week. To do that, I will send a copy of my little book called At the Pearly Gates to each of the first 24 people. You got to hurry because there's only 24 left.
Hold it up so that people can see.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah. At the Pearly Gates.
At the Pearly Gates, to each of the first 24 people who send $20 or more to support this show. The books are sent at my expense. So let's get it straight. Yeah. So the $20 goes directly to BCTV. If you prefer to get the Taoist play, Gaining the Pass.
That's available too.
That's available too. You can request that. As a matter of information, you can buy these books and others I've written at 2 Brattleboro bookstores on Elliott Street. Everyone's Books has them softbound. Outrageous has them hardbound. They're also available online at Barnes & Noble, and you can read them at the Brooks Memorial Library. So you can get out without donating to BCTV at all and still read the books. But if you ask for it, I will send the book you choose, and I'll even autograph it.
Wow.
You just have to tell me, aside from telling me or telling BCTV where you want it sent, you should say how you want it autographed.
Yeah.
And I will do that. And your $20 will be a donation that goes 100% to a nonprofit organization, because BCTV is a nonprofit organization, and it does not go in my pocket at all.
Well, this is something that's happening to all of the community service
all
stations
the communities,
in Vermont.
every single one, not just in Vermont.
They have traditionally been financed by the cable companies.
To a very large degree, yes.
And the rules are changing, and the cable companies are taking advantage of that, and it doesn't look like they're going to be providing the financing they have in the past.
Yeah. Okay, we should get about our business, I suppose.
Yeah, let's take a look at the first one here.
First one, okay, we're starting on June 13th, and I should tell everybody, if you want to read the articles we're referring to, you can go to geoharvey.com, which is the blog that I keep. I spend about 4 to 5 hours every day doing that blog, and by every day I mean that's what I'm doing Christmas morning. We're starting on Thursday, June 13th. You can go to the blog, click on the calendar, and you will find the articles. Hopefully find them that we're referring to. Our first article is from Clean Technica.
Top takeaways from Tesla's shareholder meeting. I want to add to what George just said. Some of these things are well worth reading.
Oh yeah.
You know, and as I've said on the show in the past, We could devote a whole show to some of these.
Well, you know, I have a policy on my blog that if an article has more than one thing that it's talking about, then I won't use it. I want articles that focus on one thing.
One thing, okay.
I don't hold to that 100% of the time. This first article that we're doing today from Clean Technica is 7 takeaways.
Well, we'll talk about some of that.
And, you know, they were good enough that I thought, yeah, I should probably include that. So
well, it's called Top Takeaways from Tesla's Shareholder Meeting.
At Tesla's yearly shareholder meeting, Elon Musk delivered the company's State of the Union for 2019. A few takeaways include that Tesla will have a vegan steering wheel. Okay, I'm not going to eat it one way or the other. And that Elon actually does have a submarine car, although he's not James Bond. But those two are not in the top 7.
Well, I'll read a couple of them, not all of them, because it's interesting. The Model 3 is outselling all of its premium sedan competitors.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
People are buying that car.
They are.
The second one's real interesting, the Tesla pickup truck, which is coming out, I guess, later this year. It will be more functional than a Ford F-150, with better performance than a Porsche 911. The truck will look like it's come from a sci-fi movie.
Which the Tesla tractor for tractor trailer.
The tractor trailer looks like that.
Yeah.
The battery technology remains superior to EVs from the big auto industry today. So Tesla's doing the right thing about batteries. This is an interesting thing. The company may begin mining some of the minerals it needs in order to continue its expansion.
I think that's really interesting. I wonder if they're going to have to send some of these things to China to be processed, though.
That's an interesting thing, because that's what's happening these days. Some of the rare earths are getting
we used to get all of our neodymium from China.
Yeah.
And then we said, oh, well, we've got a neodymium mine. All we've got to do is put in the environmental safety issues, take care of them.
And then we send it to China.
And then what do? We send it to China to be processed. And then on top of this, Donald Trump says, oh, we're in a trade war with China. And the Chinese are sitting there saying, Huh? What are we gonna do with this neodymium? Maybe we should sell it to somebody in Germany or use it ourselves.
Well, there's one final takeaway, and this is a quote. It's financially insane to buy anything other than an electric car that can upgrade to full autonomy.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about this again, but it's coming, folks. It's coming.
There's one thing that I want to mention, and that is just before this show started, I got halfway through a half-hour video, which, by the way, you can get to by going to yesterday's Clean Technica, which I would report today, which means that it would be a next week's show. I had not.
We're going to talk about that.
Thought about putting this into next week's show. I didn't intend it. I might try to sneak it in there somehow. There was a young woman in San Francisco who had has a YouTube channel talking about the basically devoted. I'm not going to use the word she uses to describe, but she says
we'll have to bleep you.
She is the maker of the world's bleepingest robots. But nevertheless, she decided after doing robots that would do things like wake her up by slapping her in the face or fill a glass of wine, which by the way gets crushed, things of this nature. She decided, since she's moving stuff around, she wants a pickup truck, but she wants one that's electric. So what did she do? Rather than wait for Tesla to come up with its own Tesla pickup truck, she bought a Model 3 and cut it into a pickup truck. And this is the subject of a half-hour-long video.
Wow.
And this is, I have to hand it to she reminds me a little bit of Jessica Kilroy, the young woman who would go up and fix the wind turbines.
The one that's hanging by a rope.
27 stories up by a rope with a grinder to grind a damaged section of the blade. Anyway, this article is about the top takeaways, and I just thought I'd mention that she made the world's first Tesla pickup truck.
Tesla pickup truck.
Yeah.
Well, let's move along here.
Okay, our next item is from Forbes.
Renewable energy jobs move south and east as industry shifts to middle-income economies. By the way, they're talking about Asia here.
They're talking about Asia.
It's
they're
not
not talking
Southeast
about
US,
No, they're not
Asia.
talking about the Carolinas and Georgia and Alabama. They're talking about Vietnam and places like that. Currently, 39% of all renewable energy jobs are in China. Other important jobs markets include Brazil. I was intrigued by the order of these. Brazil, the United States, and the European Union.
And that's in real order, isn't it?
That's in order.
Yeah.
Brazil has more jobs in renewable energy than the United States
That's
has.
interesting.
Well, you know why? It's because they don't use gasoline.
No, they don't. That's right. They use alcohol.
And they've got the energy infrastructure there to power their cars without using gasoline.
Mm-hmm.
And like nobody is using gasoline there in Brazil. It's got to be.
You can't buy it.
You can't buy it.
There isn't any.
Not straight. But the most notable trend in emergence of renewable energy industries in more corners is the emergence of renewable energy industries in more corners of East and Southeast Asia.
Well, according to the article, more countries have begun to manufacture, trade, and install suitable energy technologies. They mention Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam.
Yeah.
Solar PV and biofuels drive the growth in employment. Wind and hydro have seen flat growth in these countries.
Yeah, and we're going to be seeing some technologies develop, I think, that are just now beginning to emerge. And, you know, the hydrogen
We're
technology.
really at the beginning of a sea change.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
We're at the beginning of a sea change, and wind and solar have already reached grid parity. That says something.
And where can it go from here?
Well, it ain't going to
We're
go
gonna be
up,
talking
and
about
we
that.
are going to be talking about that. Okay.
Yeah, let's come a little closer to home here.
Yep, this is from Solar Power World. And what are they talking about?
Renewable Energy Vermont becomes the first SEIA affiliate in New England, and you're going to find out in a second what SEIA really stands for.
Okay, Solar Energy Industries Association is what it stands for, and they announced that Renewable Energy Vermont is an official affiliate, its 15th state affiliate, and the first in New England, growing a network of organizations committed to advancing solar markets around the country.
Well, that sort of explains what they are. They're state and regional advocacy nonprofits that the SEIA has developed strategic partnerships with.
Yep.
Okay, others include Oregon, Texas, and Colorado. So we're in rare company there.
Yeah.
And as a takeaway, or a final thing, Vermont is home to nearly 300 megawatts of installed solar capacity already.
300 megawatts.
Yeah.
Just think about that for a minute.
That's not a heck of a lot.
It's not a heck of a lot, but do you know how much energy the state of Vermont used to buy from Vermont Yankee Nuclear Power Plant?
Well, they couldn't be buying. Well, I don't know, but
It was a little more than 200 megawatts.
Okay, that's
So
about right.
what we're talking about here, how many megawatts do you say? 300?
300, yeah.
300. Well, 300 megawatts of solar is probably about the equivalent of 80 of nuclear. But
Because the
even
nuclear's
so,
on all the time and the sun goes out at night.
yeah, but I mean, nuclear has a much higher capacity factor. But we're growing and we're doing that, and we have wind power, and we have biogas, and we have hydro, and we're importing power. The overwhelming majority of which is renewable.
Well, we got a picture coming up.
We do, and we're up to
try to
Friday,
get that one
June
up here.
14th, and there is the picture.
There's the picture. I'll try to get it
Where's
up.
the picture?
Bingo.
Bingo.
There's the picture.
There's the picture.
That's Yosemite.
Yosemite. Yeah, I was just talking about Yosemite before the show. This is from Clean Technica.
96% of national parks negatively impacted by air pollution.
The National Parks Conservation Association published a report that has a number of insights about the negative impacts of air pollution at U.S. national parks. One of these is, quote, 96% of the 417 national parks assessed are plagued by significant air pollution problems, end quote.
Well, the article's an interview, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's worth reading if you got the time.
Well, you know, here again, I don't like putting interviews up at the blog, but
Yeah.
I put that one up.
Well, that's a good interview.
Yeah, it is. Okay, are we going to go on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay, an item from Clean Technica again.
New Florida law just legalized driverless, humanless, self-driving vehicles. Wow.
Driverless, humorless self-driving.
Humorless. Yes.
Yeah, well, I think it's about time when you consider how people drive. You know, I used to live on in the south coast of South Shore of Massachusetts, south of Boston.
Yeah. Okay.
Going down Route 3, where it was not legal to drive in the passing lane, people passed people on the shoulder at high speeds as they were approaching exits. That's the way people were down there were driving.
Okay.
Do you think that a self-driving car would do that?
I don't think so. Well,
Okay.
from everything that I've read so far, they can be very safe.
Yeah.
They are probably
much
safer than human-driven cars. We do have seen some of these things, and they got cameras pointing everywhere.
Everywhere. Okay, when will regulators approve self-driving vehicles? Well, in Florida, they already have. More than a month after Florida legislature passed a bill legalizing the use of autonomous vehicles, Governor Ron DeSantis signed the bill into law.
Well, don't expect to see these things all over Florida's highways next week.
Not yet.
Some see this as symbolic and don't expect any actual changes on the road for years. But the delivery vehicles are probably going to lead the way here.
Yeah. Delivery vehicles.
And we've already talked about
airport
automated
shuttles.
Yeah.
Certain bus routes. You know, I mean, we're going to be getting more and more into this, and I have no doubt of that. I mean, we've seen, what was it that we had last week? A U.S. Post Office trucks running between El Paso and Phoenix, I think it was.
Something like that. I think that's exactly right. Yep. And it was automated.
Yeah. And then for
UPS
the first
is going to be doing it pretty quick, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
But then who's going to carry the package from the truck?
They don't. They tell you have to be there at such and such a time. And then you negotiate the time and they drive up at that time, and if you're not there to pick it up,
They leave it on a sidewalk.
no. I don't think so. They just drive off. But they will give you your package and nobody else's. So, you know.
Well,
Okay.
It remains to be seen how it shakes out. But
Yeah.
it's coming, folks.
Okay, that was Clean Technica. Our next item is
We got
BBC.
another picture coming up.
And we have a
Let's see if I
picture
can
of
get
a
this picture here.
guy walking on a beach with a
That's exactly.
bunch of
You
wind
can see
turbines.
him there. I
Yep.
think he's even got a dog.
No, I think he's got a bucket.
A bucket?
Yeah, I'll bet he's
collecting
going after
clams?
clams or something. It
could be.
Might be a dog, a very square dog.
Very square dog.
Okay, what do you got for title?
U.S. looking to harness the ocean's wind with British help.
The federal
That's
government.
a picture, by the way, of New Brighton in the U.K.
Yeah, and I don't know where New Brighton is. I should have looked it up. Brighton is on the south coast, but I have no idea.
I have no idea.
Where New Brighton is. The federal government estimates that coastal waters off of New Bedford, Massachusetts are among the windiest in the nation. Some of the bad news is that the U.S. doesn't know much about building wind turbines, at least not out in the ocean. But the good news is the U.K. can help with that.
This is a long article here. It's interesting.
It is.
And I'll read some of the quick takeaways. This spring, Massachusetts regulators green-lighted plans for the nation's largest offshore wind farm, which we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, offshore wind is booming in the UK, as we well know.
Yes.
British companies could sell technology and equipment in the US. They've been doing this, using this technology, for the last 20 years and share that expertise with places like New Bedford so that they can do it quickly and avoid some of the pitfalls.
Yeah.
And again, as we've mentioned on the show, New Bedford is going to become very important as a how would you say, a supply center.
Yes, absolutely.
For these
Yeah.
offshore wind turbines.
That's right. And I want to mention something here, which is, you know, the UK is in the process of getting a new prime minister. And
Yeah, they are,
what
aren't
they've
they?
done is the people who are registered voters in the Conservative Party, which is called the Liberal, I think it's called a Liberal Party. There's only 160,000 of them, and they vote over and over again for who they want. And every vote, they're eliminating one out of the group. They started with a bunch. They're down to a final 3 now. And in the next vote, they will decide which 2 go to the general election.
And a vote at the general election
Yeah.
for one of those two.
Yeah.
Crazy system.
It is sort of.
To us, it's crazy.
but
To them, our system's crazier.
the first person who has the highest number of votes here is Boris Johnson. And Boris Johnson is the guy who President Trump said he'd be a great prime minister, you know. And and he had more votes than the other three people combined. So he's almost certainly going to be on that final ballot. But the interesting thing here is Boris Johnson is very interested in climate change and renewable energy.
Well, that's interesting.
It's kind of the reverse of Donald Trump. He was a big guy behind Brexit.
Okay.
But, you know, that's what we have.
Wherever that's going.
Who knows?
I don't think anybody knows.
I don't think anybody knows, but Boris Johnson is so interested in Brexit that he's made it pretty clear, I think, that if they can't negotiate a deal with the European Union, they'll just do it without the European Union.
He's going to go on his own, huh?
Yeah. I don't know that even that would happen, though. I don't think Boris Johnson would have enough control over events to be able to guarantee for certain that Brexit's even going to happen.
Yeah.
So we'll just see.
Let's see
Okay.
how it shakes out.
We're up to
Got a
Saturday.
picture coming up here, too.
Saturday, June 15th, and we have a picture of the Seward Highway.
Seward Highway,
and an
which
article,
is in Alaska.
Yeah, an article from...
Looks pretty, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Article from Clean Technica.
84-year-old Tesla owner, perhaps the first to drive electric car to the Arctic.
Yeah, and they're not talking about the Arctic Circle here. They're talking about the Arctic Ocean.
Arctic Ocean, absolutely.
Many still believe electric cars are incapable of road trips due to a lack of EV charging infrastructure. An 84-year-old Tesla owner proved the naysayers wrong when he became the first person to drive an electric car to the coastline of the Arctic Ocean.
That took a lot of planning. The Tesla supercharger network made the first leg of his trip easier.
Yeah.
However, it became more challenging as he drove further north.
Yes.
He charged his car around 30 times since leaving California, including public charging stations and RV parks. He admits you have to plan it a little bit.
Although,
Well,
you know, they're talking now about these Teslas having the ability to tell you, oh, don't bother charging in the next place because there's 6 stations there and all 6 of them are in use right now.
Is that so? They're telling you that?
And they'll, you know, breeze on down but the car will tell you where you can charge within range and what the conditions are there. Teslas.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's really. What's his name? I can't even think of his name.
Elon Musk?
No, the guy in Brattleboro's got an electric car.
Oh, Jason.
Jason. We've both driven in his car.
Yeah.
It's a very nice car.
A very nice car.
I know that when he first got the car,
Yeah.
he made a trip down to Washington,
D.C.
And I saw his itinerary.
Yeah.
He must have spent about 3 weeks planning that trip.
Yeah.
Every moment. He had it planned down to the second. I'm going to stop here for 20 minutes. I'm going to have coffee.
Yeah. Well, he was enjoying that, though, because that was a new thing.
Well, that was up his alley.
Yeah.
He likes doing that kind of stuff.
We have an article from CNN now.
We do, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Greenland lost 2 billion tons of ice yesterday, which is very unusual.
Over 40% of Greenland experienced melting yesterday in this particular case being June 14th or June 13th. It's not very clear. The article came out on the 14th. I guess I reported this on the 15th, so it must have been the 13th. But the whole time was bad. Over 40% of Greenland experienced melting on that day, with total ice loss estimated to be more than 2 gigatons. It is unusual for that much ice to be lost in the middle of June, and 2019 could once again set records for the amount of Greenland ice loss. And
Now,
this was one of 4 articles that appeared simultaneously, each dealing with a different problem. And the temperatures in Greenland, in northeastern Greenland, were like 40 degrees Fahrenheit
crazy.
above normal.
Yeah, crazy. This is about Greenland is on land.
Yeah.
And so if there's melting on land, it raises the level of the sea. Whereas melting of ice floating on the ocean does not.
Yeah.
Just like the ice cube in a drink.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a 2-minute video here that's worth looking at.
Yes.
Okay, it's CNN. And I'll read a quick takeaway here. This sudden spike is comparable to some spikes in June of 2012. which saw almost the entire ice sheet experience melting for the first time in recorded history.
Right.
Okay, so it's still happening.
Of course, recorded history for Greenland goes back
Like
to
3 weeks.
Yeah, right.
Snow and ice melts off the Greenland ice sheet early in the season makes it easier for additional melt to occur later in the summer. A persistent weather pattern has been setting the stage for the current spike. This is not good news, guys.
No, it's not. And in fact, when they say recorded history in Greenland, they may be talking about the first weather satellites that were able to measure temperatures all over Greenland.
I think that's what they're not talking about. Leif Erikson.
No, they're not. Those weather satellites, though, might go back to the 1960s, so it might be 50 years.
Yeah, that's probably a good guess.
Okay.
Well, we got a picture coming up.
We do, in an article from Clean Technica.
Let's see if I can find this picture here.
An article
Bingo.
from Clean Technica about an article somewhere else.
A couple of oil pumps. Alberta taxpayers will get stuck with $400 billion plus oil and gas cleanup bill, and they don't even know it.
Rob Wadsworth, Vice President of Foreclosure and Liability for the Alberta Energy Regulator, told oil and gas officials privately last September that the cleanup bill for oil and gas wells in Alberta will be over $260 billion. Taxpayers don't even know this, and that 260 is just a portion of the bill that they're talking about in the headline.
This is a long and interesting article. They're talking 260 billion here.
Yeah.
But they're telling the people 58.65 billion.
This is typical of the kind of nonsense that comes out of some of these companies, and in this case, it's the industry.
There's even more bad news. Companies pay into a fund to cover cleanup costs, but it has a little over 1.6 billion on hand at the moment.
So it's got less than 0.5% of what it actually
crazy.
needs.
This is crazy.
But you know, it's
real, but it's crazy.
Yeah, and what do they do? Canada has gone ahead with allowing a new pipeline.
Wow. I was looking at a map of the tar sands, and I was looking at the relief map, where you can see the mountains. Boy, the tar sands up there, that's an enormous area that they're developing.
Yeah, and what's happening is...
And it's horrible what they're doing.
Yeah, and the birds fly up there, and like water birds...
Yeah, they land in a lake of oil, and they get all covered with grease.
Which means that in a couple of days, they're going to die.
Yeah, what a shame.
Okay, we're up to Sunday, June 16th.
Interesting one here. French EV sales are up 34% in the May of 2019.
Yeah, this is from Clean Technica. The French plug-in electric vehicle market scored 4,051 registrations in May, which is up 34% year over year, with electric cars growing faster than hybrids. Electric cars improved 36% and plug-in hybrids went up 30%. All electric cars represent 71% of all plug-in sales. So the all
electrics are the majority.
71%, and the plug-in hybrids are 29%. This growth is happening as the overall automotive market is stagnating. Now,
this is, of course, is in France. Okay, so the high-ranking brand is Renault.
Yeah.
Okay, but after that is Tesla in the second spot.
Yeah.
Volvo and Nissan, both Renault's got 30%.
Yep.
Tesla's got 10%.
And then
Volvo and Nissan both have 8%. Kia has 7%. So this is going to shake out kind of funny in France. Mm-hmm. But they're moving that way. And it's the future.
And this is reflected in Germany. It's reflected in Norway. It's reflected all over Europe. Sales of cars in general are down, but sales of electric vehicles are up, which means that the sales of internal combustion engine powered cars are down significantly, because those electric cars are part of a market that is down, in which they have taken over a much larger part.
Well, if you're planning on keeping a car more than a year, I think you're kind of crazy to buy an internal combustion engine these days.
I absolutely agree. Okay.
Now let's move along. We got a nice picture coming up again.
We do
some
here.
Good pictures here.
Isn't that nice?
This is
from Forbes.
Well, it's from Forbes. I'm trying to figure out where they took the picture. It doesn't say.
It doesn't say.
It's just a wind farm.
Yeah.
And a fishing boat.
And a fishing boat.
Well, let's move along. Renewable energy is now the cheapest option, even without subsidies.
New data from the International Renewable Energy Agency demonstrate that using renewable energy is increasingly cost-effective compared to other sources, even when it must compete with heavily subsidized fossil fuel industry. And the fossil fuel industry is heavily subsidized in much of the planet. And now what we're seeing is it can't compete with wind.
Well, this is just from the article. Unsubsidized renewable energy is now most frequently the cheapest source of energy generation.
Yeah.
These lower costs are expected to propel a mass adoption of renewables even further. Well, if you watch this show, you'd know that.
Yeah, that's right.
Solar and wind undercut even the operating only costs of coal-fired plants. That's not the financing. That's just the running.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Over 1/5 of global electrical power is now generated from renewables.
Over a fifth.
Already.
Yep.
Bingo.
We are now up to an article from Clean Technica.
We are. When will renewable energy prices stop dropping? By the way, when I was reading this article, I'm thinking to myself, boy, this sounds an awful lot like George Harvey talking. And it turns out he wrote it.
Renewable energy prices have just kept falling for years, and some people wonder when they will stop. Their understanding is that prices are rather unpredictable. In some important ways, they are wrong. To a surprising degree, the price declines are predictable.
Well, you have talked about Wright's law on this show a lot, so I'll recap it really quickly.
Yeah.
It relates the cost of a technology to the number of units that have been produced.
Yeah.
As experience is gained with the technology, knowledge and efficiency in producing products with that technology increases. Okay, it makes sense. It becomes both better and less expensive. Okay,
Right.
while PVs and wind power are now at parity with fossil fuels, their costs can be predicted to continue to fall for some time to come. And as the cost of batteries will continue to fall, going below those of fossil fuels in the near future. With each year that passes, cost of renewable energy will fall further below parity. So it's going to happen, and it's going to happen because of economics.
It's going to happen. We're already at parity, and what this means is, if you want to invest in a power generating facility, really, you've only got one option today, because
if you're going to be realistic, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, because the cost of natural gas, for example, can go up or down, but that's only a portion of the cost of running the plant. And the cost of running a natural gas plant is now being undercut by wind and solar power. And that undercutting is going to get worse with every passing year.
Well, the cost for fuel for wind and solar is not going to be changing.
Probably
it's
not.
Zero.
Yeah, probably not. Although it might be taxed, somebody in Washington.
Well, they're working on that.
Yeah, could figure out a way to tax the
They're
sunshine.
working on that. They'll tax your shoelaces if you will.
Yeah, they will.
Let them.
What this reminds me of, or one of the things that it reminds me of, is I was, a computer engineer, and at one point in the company that I was working for, the head of research and development, which was the division that I worked in, came into my office with a couple of other people there, and one of the things he said is, this architecture is becoming obsolete, and he was pointing at the motherboard of a 386 or 486
That means
computer.
nothing. So.
Huh?
386, 486 means nothing.
These were the first computers that you could actually do web surfing with.
So this was a personal computer.
It was a personal computer. And, the motherboard was maybe this big. And I thought to myself, where are we going to go? But I said, how do you know it's going to be obsolete? And he said, well, we're up against a limit, and the limit is the speed of light. It's kind of hard to get around the speed of light. And the problem had to do with signals propagating across the board and how fast.
An 8-inch board, and they're talking about the speed of light, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
It takes a nanosecond to get a signal from one place to another place that's a foot away.
Yeah.
So, we're starting to talk about nanoseconds getting to be problematical here. And I thought, what are we going to do about that? And he said, easy. You put the memory on the chip.
Okay.
On the, well, that's how they do it. And of course, all of a sudden that problem disappeared. In renewable energy, in energy storage, whatever we're talking about here, we're in a position that's very much like what happened actually before in the computer industry. We started getting to the point where you had to put memory on the chip. And if you think about computer memory, you can buy a 16 gigabyte thumb drive for the cost of a cheap lunch.
Oh, sure.
When the first
They
computer
started to give away thumb drives as premiums.
Absolutely. And when I first started, the first computer I worked on had core, which meant that the memory had little iron rings that were stitched together by women in Malaya. And they cost $1 a bit. Now, $1 a bit for a 16 gigabyte thumb drive.
That's expensive.
That would be $128 billion. And we
That's
can
expensive
expect
to anybody, even me.
And as I was thinking about this, where is the price of renewable energy going to go? I started thinking about that company in Florida, Nickel Ride, which is giving away rides for free.
We've talked about that.
Because they can use it for advertising.
Advertising is what they're making money on.
I think somebody in the power industry is going to say, we could give this power away if we did this.
That's an interesting concept, isn't it?
Yeah, and then the power becomes free.
Yeah.
Well, you can do that. We can give you free electricity, any amount you want, provided you've got batteries that are enough to back you up for 2 days.
And we'll sell you the batteries.
And we'll sell you the batteries, and we'll withdraw power from that battery when we need it.
When we want it, yep.
And, a deal like that?
That's good. Sounds like a good deal to me.
Yeah. Okay.
We visited some guy in town that's got that deal. And he seems quite happy with it.
Yeah. We are up to Monday, June
we got another
17th,
picture
and we
coming
have
up
a
here.
picture of a climate change rally in Paris.
It certainly is.
They're a climate change rally in Paris. What do the signs say? Time is running out. I'm sorry, I can't do this with a good French accent. I want a hot date, not a hot something.
Yeah, I can't read that. Yep.
Yeah, and
not a hot climate. No.
A hot climate. That's
they spell climate
planet.
wrong.
It's a
planet.
hot planet.
Yeah.
I mean, they're obviously appealing to an English-speaking crowd. Okay.
Well, what it says here, this is a long article, and it's also worth reading.
Yeah.
EU leaders face pressure to deliver on climate change.
Yes. This is from the BBC. By keeping global warming in the public eye, protesters helped Green parties in last month's European elections. They won 74 seats in the European Parliament. This is up from 52 seats. Their surge and a boost for liberal parties in the center will change EU political dynamics.
Well, there's a 2-minute video on this that's worth looking at.
Yeah.
It's about fears about pollution and climate change.
Yes.
And some of the quick takeaways here. Tackling climate change is among the key challenges for EU leaders.
Yes.
Okay, and Greta is on the EU leaders about exactly that.
Greta Thunberg, 16-year-old girl, world leader.
I love Greta. She's great.
Isn't she amazing?
The green agenda has become mainstream after months of student-led protests and the Extinction Rebellion civil disobedience campaign. That's not going to go away.
No,
folks.
it is not going to go away. It's only going to get worse.
The EU has binding targets for addressing climate change by 2030 to cut greenhouse gas emissions by at least 40% and boost the share of renewables to at least 32%. But are the EU's plans for 2019 to 2024 ambitious enough on climate change?
Well, no, in my opinion.
I don't think so. That's
okay,
why they're asking that
I have a
question.
little message for the viewers here.
Well, let's look at what you have to say.
Let's look at what I have to say. I voted for Richard Nixon twice.
Okay.
I've said this before. I voted for Gerald Ford. I voted for Ronald Reagan twice. I voted for George Bush twice. I voted for Bob Dole. I voted for George W. Bush. And I want to tell anybody.
You didn't vote for Trump, though.
I resigned my life membership in the National Rifle Association when they endorsed Donald Trump.
Okay.
All right, for multiple reasons, any one of which would do. But the reason why I didn't vote for George W. Bush twice was because in 2003 it became obvious to me that climate change was real and that the leadership of the Republican Party was blocking action on it for reasons that I could only attribute to the fact that they were receiving lots of money in donations from people who were involved in fossil fuels. And those donations have only gone up. And if you're a conservative, which I count myself as a sort of a conservative, but if you're a conservative, I have a message for you, and that is climate change is real. And by the way, Kelly, what's her name, Clark, who is the U.S. ambassador to Canada, and is...
I'll take your word for that.
She's been nominated by Donald Trump to be the ambassador to the United Nations.
Okay.
Said in the news yesterday, climate change is real, and we have to do something about it. That's not a quote, but that's essentially what
where's she going to be working
saying.
next?
If she works at the United Nations, they asked her...
After saying that, she's not going to work.
No, well, the senators asked her if she could be objective about climate change and things like that, because her family is heavily invested in coal. And she said if it came to a vote, or when it comes to a vote that involves that kind of thing, she would recuse herself, which I think means that Donald Trump has probably lost all respect for her, just like he lost respect for the Attorney General who recused himself which is exactly, I think, what he should have done. But I will also point out that the person whose politics are closest to Theodore Roosevelt's, in my opinion, and I can cite chapter and verse on this, is Bernie Sanders.
Interesting.
Well, you compare Bernie Sanders' 2016 political platform with Theodore Roosevelt's 1912.
Very similar, isn't it?
Almost identical, except for
things. He
things.
scares the hell out of Wall Street.
Bernie Sanders, well, I think that Theodore Roosevelt did too.
Probably did, yeah.
Yeah.
He was one of them too.
Yeah.
He was of them.
Yeah, he was.
Okay, let's move along here. We got one coming up.
From
PV Magazine in
PV Magazine in Australia, that's right.
Investors remain ready to back renewable projects.
Sydney-based, sorry, I'm reading upside down here, and I'm say it up, so it comes out wrong. Minter Ellison, which is all one word, but it has two parts capitalized, released a wide-ranging international survey that found that renewable energy investors stand ready to increase their activities over the next 2 years. Australian renewable energy projects are attractive, especially to U.S. investors.
That's interesting.
So what's happening in the United States? We're shipping money to Australia. No, I mean, does this have anything to do with the trade war, do you suppose?
Might have a little bit.
Yeah, it's too expensive to buy PV panels in the United States, so we'll buy them in Australia and install them locally.
Well, 86% of the respondents to this survey reported that energy storage is the subsector with the most opportunities. Oh, I think that's true.
Boy, is it ever.
The majority of foreign investment is set to come from the United States, China, and Germany. Now, this is foreign investment in Australia.
I'm wondering, China is holding $1.6 trillion of U.S. federal bonds.
Yes, they are. What are they going to do with that?
How much Chinese bonds is the United States holding?
I don't know.
I doubt
I haven't a clue.
Okay.
Well, we're going to stay in Australia for a while.
Yep. Our next item is from Renew Economy.
This is a long article, and it's also worth reading.
Yeah.
South Australia's stunning aim to be net 100% renewables by 2030. South Australia, by the way, is a state. It's not a region.
Yes.
And it's basically the bottom part of Australia.
Yeah, and it's about 2.5 times the size of Texas. The South Australia.
It's like between Florida and Houston, or between Florida and Phoenix.
It's big. It's big. I said Texas. I might have meant Alaska. I
think it's Texas. Yeah.
I think it's Texas. The South Australian Liberal government says it expects the state will achieve net 100% renewables by 2030. This contrasts with the conservative Liberal Party at the federal level, where the prevailing view is that renewables will kill the economy. And you know what
that's politics.
Yeah, it is. But you know what this reminds me of? I read this morning, and I think it was in Maine. Was it in Maine? No, it was in I forget which state legislature it was, but they had a big renewables push. The bill came up before the legislature, and when it went to the Senate, it passed 100%.
Nothing passes 100%.
Yeah, well, this did. And I was sitting there thinking,
Wow.
the Republicans voted for this, all of them.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting.
and I think that at the state level, and this is clearly happening in Australia, the Australian Liberal Party, which is the equivalent to the American Republican Party, is very much into the states pushing renewable energy. The federal government is not. So
Yeah, we've talked about that.
yeah,
Well, I'll read a little bit of a takeaway here. This is what's happening
yeah,
in this particular article. South Australia expects to produce more wind and solar generation than it needs for its domestic requirements. Okay, interconnection with storage will allow South Australia to become a renewable energy exporter.
right.
Okay, this is an opportunity to decarbonize transport, the gas network, and then heavy industries.
Right.
This is a portent of things to come.
It is indeed.
It means green metals, green minerals, and green hydrogen.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Australia is well suited to become an energy leader because they have
They're talking
plenty
about
of sun,
they're talking
they got
about
plenty
exporting
of desert, plenty of land.
Yeah, they're talking about exporting hydrogen to Japan and Malaysia and places like
Well,
that.
they're going to wind up
Indonesia.
using that hydrogen themselves, I think, to make fuel.
I think
know?
I think you might be right. But this is what they're talking about.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well,
Okay,
they've got the opportunities. It's just a matter of how they take advantage of them.
we are up to Tuesday, June 18th.
We are, aren't we?
And we have a picture here of solar system on water.
Yeah, let's get a hold of that.
And this
picture
one
here,
is
see if I
for
can't
an
get that one.
article that came from CNN.
Well, that is not a real picture, I don't think.
I think you're probably right.
It says solar system on water.
Yeah.
And supposedly those are boats, but I don't think
No,
they
I
are.
think they're connection
They
points
are.
of some
They're
type.
substations or something.
Substations,
Yep,
a whole
that's
bunch of them.
exactly what they are.
But this is a very different kind of solar energy system. I think you're right. It is not an existing system. But go ahead.
They want to create floating islands to convert sunlight into energy.
Researchers in Switzerland and Norway are trying to recycle carbon dioxide to make fuel.
Makes sense?
Yeah,
That makes sense.
Actually, we've been talking about
Yeah.
that for years. In a study published this month, a group proposed to use marine-based floating islands of solar cells to make hydrogen, extract CO2 from seawater, and react them to make methanol.
It's doable. I mean,
Sure
it's new
is.
technology, but
Absolutely.
it's doable.
This is, well, some of it, the idea of powering this by electricity, and some of the stuff about electrolysis of hydrogen is new. But extracting CO2 from seawater, and especially the business of reacting hydrogen with CO2
This
to
is
make
new
methanol.
technology.
No, making
No?
methanol from hydrogen and CO2 is not new. That goes back quite a long ways. I've forgotten the name of the process, but it's about 100 years old.
Solvay process?
No, I'm thinking.
But I know, we've talked about it. Yep.
It might be the Sabatier process, but it is a very old process.
Well, a quick takeaway here.
Yeah.
The energy created from the sun by the solar cells will produce hydrogen gas and carbon dioxide from the water.
Yeah.
Okay, well, producing hydrogen gas from electricity. Anybody who's taken high school chemistry has probably done that.
Very likely, yeah.
Electrolysis, Okay.
Yeah.
The gases will then react to form methanol, an alternative fuel that can be used in cars. So there's people out there thinking about these things.
I don't like the idea of putting methanol into cars, though, because I think methanol is a little bit too dangerous. I'd rather have it go to ethanol. I mean, at least there you're talking about something which, if you spill a large quantity of it, it might make people drunk to breathe the air, but it's not going to make them blind. So.
Got a point there.
Yeah.
You've got a point
Okay,
there.
our next item is from CNN.
Oh, this one's scary.
Yeah, it is.
This one's scary. Let's get you up where you are up. Flesh-eating bacteria in New Jersey reveal one possible effect of climate change. This is not nice.
In the past 2 years, 5 cases of Vibrio vulnificus, a flesh-eating bacterial infection, has been tied to Delaware Bay. Water temperatures have been rising there in recent years, making favorable conditions for the bacteria, according to a study. Now, this kind of bacteria had existed for many, many years in the Gulf.
But it wasn't up in Delaware Bay.
No, it was not. And Delaware Bay is not just New Jersey, it's Philadelphia.
The article is very scary.
Well, the thing that scares me about this is not the flesh-eating bacteria, but what it talks about, which we already knew, about pathogens of one kind or another moving into our environment. And
warmer temperatures led to changes in bacteria in the coastal ecosystem,
yeah, so it's not
providing
just
more favorable conditions for Vibrio and other bacteria.
Yeah, and other bacteria, but not just other bacteria, other insects, other arachnids, other animals of various kinds, other plants of various kinds. Have you seen the plant called the dog strangling vine?
No, I haven't.
We have a lot of dog strangling vine in Brattleboro.
You're kidding me.
And you find these things near.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's a vine that has a funny pod that is thick in the middle and it tapers toward both ends. It has tiny purple, dark purple flowers and a vibrant looking leaf, and it climbs, and as it climbs, wraps around things. And
it's not a water plant.
It's a perennial, and it releases seeds that float around on the air because they've got it's a fairly close relative of milkweed.
Okay.
In fact, it's close enough that monarch butterflies will lay their eggs on them.
That's pretty close to milkweed, yeah.
But it's not close enough that the larvae will survive.
Oh.
So the larvae which hatch out of the eggs die because they can't get the nutrition they need. Anyway, we have a lot of these in Brattleboro. They have just invaded in the last couple of years.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Well, this is from CNN, and like a lot of CNN, there's auxiliary stuff in there.
Yeah.
And there's a 2-minute video here.
Yeah.
Which features our friend Sanjay Gupta.
Yes.
And it's worth watching.
Yes.
It's good.
Yeah. Okay, our next item is from CNN.
Aha.
Got 5 items in 10 minutes, so we
got enough time to do
We have enough time, but we have 4 items in 10 minutes.
Synthetic fuels, supporting Wärtsilä's vision of a 100% renewable energy future.
As Wärtsilä continues to pursue a 100% renewable energy future, one emerging technology that looks set to play a major part in the process is synthetic fuel production, which generates synthetic fuel from excess CO2 emissions. This is from Hellenistic Shipping News Worldwide.
It's a long article. It's interesting.
Yeah. It's touching again on what we were just talking about, the business of making methanol out of CO2 and hydrogen. But clearly, if you look at this article, you'll see there's, lots of things that you could make that could be used as fuels.
Well, this Wärtsilä, I've never heard of it before.
Wärtsilä
they
is
make big engines for ships.
They make diesel engines with pistons and cylinders so big that if you popped the piston out of the cylinder, you could put a sleeping bag in it and sleep.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're big engines.
Yeah.
Hydrogen can be obtained from water by electrolysis. We've talked about that.
Yes.
Carbon dioxide is captured directly from the air like trees do.
Yep.
They don't explain how. The two are combined together using catalytic conversion technology and renewable energy to produce synthetic fuels. We just talked about that.
Yep.
Icelandic Carbon Recycling Company they're currently doing this, produces methanol from carbon dioxide, hydrogen, and electricity on a commercial scale.
Yep.
So this isn't the future. This is already happening.
They're already doing
on
it.
a small scale.
Yes. I'm not sure what technology is going to shake out as the best to use here, but something will
They have
happen.
options.
Our next item is from Think Progress.
Got another picture coming up.
Do we? Yes, we do. There it is.
And that is Palm Springs.
That's what it says.
Renewables are winning the economics battle against new coal and gas.
Stunning study shows Bloomberg New Energy Finance reported that renewables are now the cheapest form of electric generation across 2/3 of the world. 5 years ago, they were cheapest in only 1% of the world, according to BNEF. Now, what's happened here is that almost any place in the United States, they're the cheapest thing going. And in a lot of the rest of the world, they are the cheapest thing going.
Well, this is what they say in the article. By 2030, wind and solar will undercut existing coal and gas almost everywhere.
Almost everywhere.
It would be cheaper to build and operate new renewable power plants than it will be to keep operating existing fossil fuel plants.
Right. So if you're going to invest in a gas-powered electric generating plant, would you do so? Because it's going to be obsolete in 10 years.
That's exactly what the article says.
This is a very clear message.
Well, since 2010, wind power has dropped 49% in cost. Solar has plummeted by 85%.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Overall, by 2050, the cost of solar electricity is expected to drop a further 63% compared to today.
Right.
Okay, the cost of wind will likely drop 48%. That's almost half.
Yep.
Okay, we're shifting away from a world today where two-thirds of power generation is from fossil fuel to one 3 decades from now where 2/3 is zero carbon. It's happening.
It is happening.
And it's happening because of economics.
It is. Our next item is from Clean Technica. We
Yeah,
alluded to this earlier on.
This is a good article, too. Extreme temperatures are melting the Arctic. Well, we've talked about this several times already.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, there were a whole bunch of articles that appeared simultaneously. I took just one from that day, but this appeared later on. If you live in the United States or Canada, you may have noticed cool weather lately.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. Climate scientists say this is because of a mass of cold air, usually over the Arctic, has been displaced southward by warm air that is as much as 40 degrees higher than normal. There is a cause of this and there's an effect. And of course the cause is climate change, and the effect is it's going to make a mess.
Well, quick takeaway. Researchers from the University of Alaska found that the permafrost is thawing 70 years earlier than predicted.
Yeah,
7-0.
That's scary.
The climate is, and this is on that same sentence, the climate is now warmer than at any time in the last 5,000 years.
Well, they're saying 5,000 because that's the length of human history. The chances are it probably goes back further hundreds of thousands of years.
By the way, in this article is a pretty scary graph that's put up by Bill McKibben.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, that is.
And it goes almost straight up.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah, it's not good.
Greenland is melting 3 times faster than even the early phases of the global warming era.
Yep.
So it's getting worse.
We have passed one of the turning points that were predicted by Al Gore. And
yeah, we have. Didn't last week we talk about Al Gore?
We did.
We owe him an apology.
That's right.
That's what the article said.
Our next item is our last. It's from Gizmodo.
And we got a picture.
We have a picture, and it's not all that great a picture, but
Let's
it
see
was
if
with the article,
find a
so I
picture.
included
Come on,
it.
guy. Better if I use this mouse, isn't it?
There you go. Use the right mouse.
Well, there it is, and it says solar PV is amazing.
Yeah,
There's a guy sitting there right in the middle.
Yeah.
You can see his hard hat.
So what do you have for a title?
U.S. solar power is booming this year despite Trump's tariffs.
A report from the Solar Energy Industries Association and Wood Mackenzie Power and Renewables found that in the first quarter of 2019 was the strongest year in the history of the U.S. solar industry, with 2.7 gigawatts of solar capacity added to the grid, and the growth is expected to continue. We have got to a point here, and when I saw that Donald Trump was putting the tariffs on, I thought, they'll slow things down for a year, but so what? People.
That's what this article is saying.
And that's what the article is saying.
New solar installations should grow 25% from 2018 to 13.3 gigawatts. That's new installations, driven by the larger scale utility solar projects, which really haven't been happening yet.
Yeah.
The really large scale.
Yeah.
This sector should grow by 46%, and the industry expects this growth to continue well past 2019.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be the rule for the future. I don't see this turning around. Prices are just going to keep going down. And Donald Trump decided to put tariffs on Indian solar PV manufacturers this week, and
the Indians are laughing at him.
Well, what are they going to do? I mean, the Indians are putting in so much solar power now that
they can't keep up.
They can't keep up with their own demand.
Yeah.
So, and so what does that mean? Well, it just means that Americans pay more money. And there was a really interesting article about this that appeared in one of the money magazines, which basically said when you have a tariff on Chinese stuff, it doesn't cost the Chinese anything. It costs Americans who buy things from China.
You don't realize that.
No. And it means that the Chinese will sell less stuff in the United States, but so what? They've got a worldwide market. They don't have to worry about it. Time to go. Sorry about that.
I guess we are. I guess we're running out of time.
We are running out of time, but I hope everybody has a lovely week. Goodbye.
You all come back and see us now, you hear?
Yeah.